Hello, good day to you. Today, my demonstration is about multi-node installation of Openstack. So, by multi-node, I mean breaking, separating the various components of Openstack into multiple machines or virtual machines. Or by that, I mean separating out the controller, the compute node, the network node, the storage node, onto separate or computers or machines. And in this demonstration by machines, I mean virtual machines. Or if you have four uh, hardware, I mean the physical machine, you can use it, but virtual machines is good enough. Um, so this installation will be based on the RDO Packstack utility. Uh, the RDO Packstack utility uses Puppet in the backend. uh, if you are curious as to what actually goes on. So in this demonstration, I am going to assume that you can create a virtual machine. There are various options for creating virtual machines. You can use the VAT manager with KVM and libvirt. You can use VirtualBox. You can use boxes. So you have to choose your own virtualization environment and create your virtual machines. So this demonstration might be important to you for various reasons. If you are just planning, if you want to learn about OpenStack and have a feel of what it takes to run OpenStack in a production environment. So this might be good for you if you are planning to write, for example, the uh, OpenStack administration exam, like the Red Hat Certified System Administrator in OpenStack. This is one of the objective. Objective is to deploy and configure the Red Hat OpenStack platform. So this is might be good for you also. And if you actually want to set up your own environment or for maybe purpose of or building a lab, this is good for you also. So like I said, I'll be having four virtual machines. So the four virtual machines should be running CentOS 7. The minimal installation is good enough. I will recommend a fresh, that is a new installation of CentOS 7 on these machines. Uh, and also the username that you are going to use, must have the privilege, the sudo privilege. Also, because so that you don't have to work as root. Excuse me. So let's talk about the nodes actually. The first node is the controller node. The controller node is like the brain of the cloud environment. It is the node that runs the API services or the various OpenStack services. And so in my own setup, I have two network interface. It is not compulsory that you have two network interface. You can have one. I have like 2 to 4 CPUs. I have 4 gig of RAM and a 20 gig disk. So depending on the resources available to you, you can create something similar. I would recommend 4 gig of RAM. So the next node is the compute node. The compute node is the node that runs the compute services. That is things like the hypervisor, like Chemo KVM or like LXD and various hypervisor components. It also runs the L2 agent. So also similarly, I have two network interfaces. I have four CPUs, 4 gig of RAM, 50 gig disk. Next, the network node. The network node is the node that runs the networking services. That is Neutron and other components like the L3 agent, the metadata services. So you don't need a lot of resources for this. So I think 2 CPU, 2 gig of RAM, maybe 20 gig of disk is good enough. The next component is the storage node. The storage node runs storage related services, things like Cinder and Swift. So also similarly, 2 CPU, 2 gig of RAM, and 40 gig disk. All these resources depend on what you have in your environment. I think the most important one that consumes a lot of resources is the compute node. Your compute node should have, I would recommend at least 4 gig of RAM for the compute node, because the instances you are going to be launching, will be running on the compute node. So you have to give it some special privilege. So make sure the nodes have static IP addresses. Make sure you have a name, give them the proper name, and create DNS entry for them for all the nodes. So let me show you. Let's go to my terminal. So this is my controller node. If I run hostname, or it's my controller node. So let me become root on this node. If you look at my etc hosts, so my etc host has the the DNS entry for all the nodes, and you should have this entry on all the nodes, basically on all the nodes. It is important. So like I said, let me just show you that I am running CentOS Linux release 7.3. So just to show you that. So for the installation, I'll be going to the RDO page. This is the RDO website. And I'll be starting from step 0 here. So you see the prerequisites. So the prerequisite talks about things like creating your DNS, making sure you have a fully qualified name, or things like having at least 4 gig of RAM, preferably 6 gig of RAM, or the processor with hardware virtualization extensions. So this virtualization extensions is actually very important for the compute node. So if I go to my compute node, this is my compute node, and I type something like LSCPU. So LSCPU. So even though this is a virtual machine, you see it has the hypervisor vendor KVM virtualization type full. So the that is important. Let me cut my proc CPU info. So under my proc CPU info, okay, so for example, if you are running a physical machine, you should see some under these flags here. When you do your CPU info, you should see it's related to virtualization, or at the minimum, if you run LSCPU, you should see things related to your virtualization extension. That is very important for the compute node. So let us go to the continue actually. So one of the other things you have to do is to disable firewall D on all the nodes. I have done that on my nodes. So but you have to go to each of your node, disable firewall D, stop it, disable network manager, it's very important, stop it, then enable network, enable and start network. So I have done these things, that's why I'm not showing them, but you have to do them So next is step one, the software repositories. So there are two here. One is for Red Hat, the other is for CentOS. So you have to install this repository on all the nodes. So you have to go to each of the nodes and install this repository. So I am going to be installing the OpenStack Liberty because at this time, for the Red Hat exam, the Red Hat version platform 8 is based on Liberty. So that is why I'm installing OpenStack Liberty, rather than the Okata version here. So, but this instruction is good enough for any version that you want to install. So you have to install this repository on all the nodes. I have actually installed it on all the nodes already, just to shorten the time of the recording. So, and after that, you have to do an update, do an update on all the nodes as well. So the next thing is to install the Packstack utility. Packstack utility, you actually need to install this on the controller node. So this needs to be installed only on the controller node, which I have installed. So, after doing that installation, so if you see here, the step 3 talks about the all-in-one installation, but in this case, we are not doing all-in-one installation. We are doing, multi-node installation. So I'm getting us as root. I don't want to be root. So the next step, which is very important, is to generate the answer file. So we have to run the Packstack utility and give it the option gen answer file and specify the name of the file that the name we want to give to the file. So you see it's generated the file. So we have to edit this file to run vim on answer file. So this editing is actually the most important, the most important aspect of this installation. So, and if you look at this file is actually like 1233 lines. So it's a relatively large file. So, but we are not going to be editing everything. We are going to be editing, certain parameters. The first one is the default password. So the default password specify the password that you want to use for for all the services that require password. And so for all the services, you are going to say something like Y and N. Y is for yes and N is for no. I hope you guessed that. So Y is to enable the service, N is to disable the service. So I'll go through some of the services. So like as you can see, you see things like MariaDB, Glance, Cinder. So all these have Y, which is fine. Neutron, Horizon, Swift, Ceilometer. So one of the services that actually is important, especially if you are planning to write this exam, is it. So by default, it is not enabled. So here you see something like use it template to configure OpenStack services and resources. So it is not enabled by default here. So I'm going to type Y to enable it. So there's another one here, configure NTP servers. So if you have an MTP servers, you should add it. If not, you can rely on the NTP of the instances of the nodes. So so another very crucial, actually maybe the most crucial here, is the node's IP address. So you see here it says config controller host. That is the IP address of the controller host. This IP address is correct, 10.1.1.20. The next one is the compute. the compute. I have to change that to 22. That is the IP address of my compute. The next one is the network host. I have to change that to 24. So there's a particular option here because there are some options that come as unsupported. So because I want to also separate my storage node, I want to enable this unsupported option. So because by ordinarily the storage node is not supported, but I want to put yes. So you see something like specify why if you want to use unsupported parameters, and I want to do that even though it is not recommended, but because I needed to separate out my storage node, I want to enable it. So if I go down, I will see the one for my storage node. If you see here, it says unsupported, but because I have enabled the unsupported option, so I will put the IP address of my storage node, which is 1.26. So that is that. uh, okay, let's go on. So let me show you. Yeah, let's go on editing this file. Like I said, this is like the where we're going to spend the most of the time. So let's go down. Let's keep going, and we can also search. So if you know what you are looking for, you can search through this file, which may be faster. So for example, I want to search for demo. So this demo service is a service that is created, is like a tenant that is created by default. I don't want it, so I will put no, because at times it creates confusion. So I put no. So there's another option that I see related to it. So you see, it said config it CloudWatch install. I want to enable that also because that relates to it. Also the orchestration CloudFormation API. I want to enable it because it relates to it. So the it orchestration is actually very important. So uh, you might want to pay attention to it. So this option about Swift. So if you want to use a dedicated disk for Swift, you have to supply the paths to that storage for Swift, and you have to make sure it is properly formatted. So that is if you want to use a dedicated partition or disk for Swift. But I don't have any dedicated disk right now that I want to use for Swift. So let's go on. Actually, let's check out a very important option is Neutron. So you see I'm searching to Neutron. Let me search down a little bit more. So this Neutron option is important because it relates to networking. So there's an option that you see here. Okay, there are two. Okay, there's one option that I want to enable actually before I talk about Neutron. The first one is the load balancing as a service. I want to enable this. Why? I want to enable also Openstack networking L3 metering agent. I want to enable firewall as a service. So you can pay attention to these ones that I am enabling. By the time you do this installation, one or two times, you'll be more familiar with these options. So this option, I want you to pay attention to it. Say config Neutron L3 external bridge. This external bridge BR-EX, it is the name of the bridge that will be created. It will be created, to serve as the external to connect to the external networking. So this option is important, for you to be able to access your instances from outside of the cloud. Outside of the cloud refers to, things like from your Wi-Fi. So that is BREX. So let's scroll down to another option is the I think the ML2. So the ML2 type is another option. Config Neutron ML2 type. So I want to add flat to that. So that means that's the type that is going to be used for the tenant. So another option, very important, is the config Neutron OVS bridge mapping. OVS refers to Open vSwitch. Open vSwitch is a very important component of Openstack. So this mapping refers to the mapping between basically your physical network, in like the name you give to your physical network, and the bridge that I show you. So I am going to call my physical network ESTnet colon BREX. So I'm mapping between my external network and the bridge. So the external network, like I said, it refers to maybe your Wi-Fi or your office network, your home network, etc. So another option, very important again, is config Neutron OVS bridge iFaces. So this is the mapping between this bridge and the interface. So for example, this node is this is my network node. I want to map the bridge to ETH0. So I want to use the ETH0, as the interface here. So you see, so this is BREX colon ETH0. So there's an example here. So this example shows like what you should do. So this is very important, especially if you plan to be able to access your if you plan to be able to access your instances from outside. So let me rename this to EST-net. Actually, there's an example also here. So if you come to the installation page, you see something like, if you're planning to do something fancier, read the document on advanced networking. So the advanced networking, talks about, what I'm explaining, especially with regard to the mapping between the physical network and the bridge, and also between the bridge and the interface. So it is important. This is actually important. So I've done that. So I think one more thing you have to do is the admin. Let's look for the admin. So the admin password, refers to the basically password. Let's search for admin. So that is the password that you are going to use to log into the cloud. So by default, it is going to be some random password, but I want to make it, I want to make the password simple. So I'll put password here. So that is for the admin. So that's the default password that will be used. So yeah, so I think that is enough options. So, and one thing with this installation is that you can come back and enable, some options and run the installation again. So I hope you were able to keep track of the options that are enabled. So one was the default password. There were some options related to Neutron the Neutron options were very important. Neutron. So the Neutron options are important, especially if you want to access your instances from outside. So and also the mapping, the OVS bridge mappings, or the mapping between the bridge and the interface for the networking, and things related to it. So that's where all the options that I enabled. So that is that. So let's write and quit. So we have finished editing this file. Like I said, that is the most important, and I think the most maybe let me not use the word difficult. It is not difficult, but that is like the most important part of this installation. So the next thing we are going to do is basically to run the installation script. So now we are going to run packstack with the option answer file, and point it to the answer file. So let's do it. So it has started, and it is going to ask me for the password for all the nodes, for all the 4 nodes actually. So it's going to ask me for the password. So it is going to set up SSH keys. So, and this installation will take a couple of minutes. So I started it at 15:28. This is my time here, 15:28. So uh so right now it's setting up the SSH keys. So this installation, like I said, is going to take a couple of minutes, and I will stop the video very soon so that we'll continue our discussion of OpenStack administration in some other videos. If you have pay attention to my channel, I have other videos that talks about OpenStack administration. So for example, I have talked about things like setting up networking, uploading image, access and security, creating instance. So this video is part of the series. So, and if you enjoy the video, or if you learn one or two things, let me know. I would like to, get some feedback uh, as your thought regarding your thoughts, and you can also subscribe to the channel so that or to get more videos regarding OpenStack, and generally every other thing regarding maybe systems, systems engineering, DevOps engineering, development, and cloud computing. So that is that. So the installation is going to take some time. So right now it's preparing the servers. Um, so we have to wait. So if you are doing your installation, I would say that you should be patient and see what's going on before you leave your desk, because at times there might be an error that you have to fix. Or if there is no error, it's just going to keep doing its things, and you're going to see some messages. But I just want to wait for it to generate some messages, before I end the video. But before I end, let me just show you my other instance. So I actually have a different installation of OpenStack, which is based on OpenStack Okata. So OpenStack Okata, if you remember here, when I was doing the installation of this repository. So OpenStack Okata at this time is the latest version of OpenStack. So that is I have this installation that is separate. Uh, Let me just show you one or two things regarding OpenStack. Let me just take you on a tour of OpenStack. So briefly, so if you log in, you know, if you have multiple projects, you see multiple projects here. Then you have to select the project that you want to be on. I have only one project, which is the admin project. And once you come to your project, you see things like the compute. The compute are things that are related to what is called Nova, the Nova service. The networking is what is is done with what is called the Neutron orchestration. Orchestration is it. So it orchestration. So if you have ever come in contact with something like CloudFormation on AWS, or it is similar to CloudFormation in AWS. This is object store. So object store is actually Swift. So Swift is similar to S3 in AWS. So Swift for object storage. So the identity service is done by Keystone. Keystone, so identity service refers to things like identity management. So things like security, creating projects, creating users. So there's another tab called admin. Admin is tab for doing administrative tasks. So that is admin. I'm waiting to still preparing servers, but okay, now the installation has started. So it's going to be installing various components. It's going to be adding and installing. So that is this .pp refers to a Puppet manifest scripts. So Puppet manifests. So if you are not familiar with Puppet, Puppet is a, let me see if I can see an example. Puppet manifest. Let's look at an example of what Puppet manifest look like. So this is an example of a Puppet statement. This is actually to create a user. So basically saying user Michelle, ensure that this user is present with UID, group ID, the shell, and the home. So this is what Puppet declarations look like. So I'm just showing you just you just feel like you want to know what you're curious. So the installation is going to take a while. So, but that is that. Once the installation is done, it is going to tell you, the URL for you to log in, and it's going to tell you the location of a file, the Keystone RC file. The RC file, let me show you an example of the RC file. So this file, Keystone RC admin file. So it's going to basically show you an example of that file. So that file contains username and password for logging in into your stack, your cloud. So I think that is enough for this video, so that we don't have too long videos. If you have any thoughts, let me know. I hope you were able to learn one or two things. So I hope to see you in some other videos. Bye. Take care.